Welcome, beloveds, back to the Connected Pleasure podcast. I'm Kayla Moore, your host. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. And today I am here with a new guest named Jaclyn Orent, also goes by she, her, hers pronouns. And Jaclyn is a cultural catalyst and frequency architect who supports founders and visionaries in creating cultural change at scale. So
Mhm.
there's a lot to that, Jaclyn. I'm really excited for you to be here and talk more about this. Can you elaborate a little bit more on all that you do and tell my listeners a little bit more about who you are?
Yeah. So I think I want to just tell with a story and we'll just give like a specific
Yes.
example of my work in action. I live in Boulder, Colorado. I'm really blessed to be part of a very conscious community here in Boulder. And I got a chance to go to just like a Thanksgiving community party. And I had a chance to be able to drop in with an 8-figure founder here in Boulder. And she's also totally a tantrika. She's done her work and
Mhm.
especially around pleasure from what I'm hearing. And
Mhm.
um one of the things that she says to me is, "How would you make this decision?" And she was trying to make a decision about buying real estate. And so what I did was I ran her through what's called the science of scaling by Dr. Benjamin Hardy's. How do you grow bigger and faster than you ever could imagine possible? And the way to do that is you literally, in her case, what I did was like, okay, so if you were to make this decision by 10xing within the next 3 years, what is it
Mhm.
that you would have to do? And she realized that she basically would have to sell one of her businesses. And
Mhm.
what's so relevant about this to your audience is she immediately ran into resistance because she really enjoys where she's at right now. She's built the thing and it's easy, it's enjoyable, it's pleasurable. And it wasn't that necessarily way in the building of it. So when we're offering, 10xing in 3 years, what my partner realized is she's not going to go through exponential growth unless it's pleasurable. She
Yeah.
literally won't do it. And when you look at, using a masculine structure like Hardy's 10x within 3 years, when we look at the feminine principle, unless there's a desire, like an intrinsic desire, which in
Mhm.
her case, she had a desire to do this said thing, right? If it doesn't connect to the 10x in 3 years goal, she's not going to do it. So that's really
Right.
the difference between pull and push, and the difference between are we doing something that's greater than ourselves, or are we doing something that's all about ourselves? That's not going to give us the intrinsic motivation to continue to change. And so that's a perfect example of when we work with a leader of, she's only going to do it if it's pleasurable at this state in her
Mhm.
career. She's not going to do it if she's going to need to push.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and I think I know it sounds like you work with business owners that are kind of at more of a peak or a plateau of their businesses and are kind of moving them to the next level. But I think
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur myself, like all entrepreneurs can benefit from being able to bring this more feminine yin element back into how we build businesses and even knowing like the creation cycle that we go through of having an idea and then how do we birth it into existence and then also going into the rest period and kind of the void and what happens in that period when we're like I don't know what the heck I'm doing anymore but something
Yeah.
will come up eventually. I think we're always told in this more patriarchal masculine style to just
Yeah.
go 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 do and
Yeah.
I think your way of doing this is so needed and revolutionary for where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. And it's not just me who's saying this. Like, this is
Mhm.
actually what the science says that we need to create
Yeah.
sustainable change. And so, one of the reasons that I'm sitting here right now is because I actually applied to go to grad school this year to connect consciousness to systemic change. And I
Mhm.
got the chance to meet someone by the name of Richard E. Boyatzis, who's spent the last 60 years actually studying change, from how change happens from the individual to the couple to the team to the organization to the community, all the way up
Mhm.
to the country and even the global processes. And one of the first steps in actually the change process actually occurring is connecting to one's ideal vision for oneself. And it needs to be something that's aspirational, something that lights you up, literally needs to turn you on. Okay.
Mhm.
And that way it creates something called PEA, which stands for positive emotional attractor. And it
Mhm.
puts your body into a place of rest and digest and open-mindedness and collaboration. And we have to have that turn on of that
Mhm.
thing because that's actually what's pulling us, right? And
Mhm.
when we look at what happened in that specific founder, it's like that her desire, like her Eros, the life force that was going through with her, that was wanting that thing that connected her to the 10x within 3 years, that is the intrinsic motivation for a change process to occur. And so this isn't just like woo, feminine,
Mhm.
creativity, however it is, right? Like we cannot build new systems and structures without the life force and the creativity and the eros of the feminine desire to create something new.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing when I was reading about you, I really wanted to know you talk about how you work with leaders. And, well, first, let me ask you about this because I think this is a foundation for my next question.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about building community for these leaders and making
Yeah.
sure that they have like a peer process
Hmm.
within this next step that they're taking and being able to use pleasure as their like vehicle for doing the thing that they wanna do.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that of what it means to actually bring community into this process as well?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that was so fascinating about being introduced to Boyatz's work was that I realized I didn't need to go to grad school to study how cultural change and systemic change actually needed to occur. It turned out it already existed. So
Mhm,
between Dr. David Hawkins' Power versus Force, which is how consciousness creates systemic change, and then Richard E. Boyatz's is how change actually occurs within a fractal along the
mhm,
entire system, right? One of the things that we actually got to find out is what is actually needed for cultural change to be sustainable and desired. And there's two things. Number one is a social identity group, and another thing is resonant leadership. Okay. So, one of the first things that we know for a change process to occur is, like I said, we have to have the intrinsic motivation and a vision that pulls us forward. And for some people, that's being a cultural catalyst. They
mhm,
want to change our culture and they identify as a cultural catalyst, and they may not have had the language and to do that right until now.
mm,
And what that does is it creates a collective shared vision, which is actually the first part of actually creating resonance. So again, we have resonance, resonant relationships, and social identity groups. And these two things together is actually what creates change throughout the fractal. And so resonance is made up of three things: shared vision, shared compassion, and shared energy. And so what Cultural Catalyst is choosing to do and what we're architecting right now is bringing together people who share the vision of being a cultural catalyst, right?
mhm.
And also have the same level of competence. One of the things that we've been finding with high level leaders who've already achieved what they set out to achieve is that they really don't have peers. They're surrounded by mentees, contractors, employees, even though they love their employees, like they're good friends with their employees, right? But
Yeah,
it's still, they don't have the same level of competence because, being a founder is its own thing. Like you're pioneering
mhm,
something new into the world. There's risks that you had to take that your employees will never understand.
yeah,
And so, what the science is telling us is that these people who are wanting to be cultural catalysts, who share that collective shared vision of being a cultural catalyst, they need peers, like actual peers who are on their same level of competence. And what that does is it actually creates what's called shared energy, which is like the mutual activation. Science calls that emotional and social contagion. We could call that turn on too, right? Like the
mhm,
turn on that happens between women when they're all in their pleasure, like in a room, like that
yeah,
is the mutual activation that actually happens when you're in a group of people that share your vision. And so what does that do? Like, why do we need that? Well, what the science is saying is like your peers are basically like going to the gas station to fill up. Okay.
mhm,
And so this whole philosophy of like that we can do it alone is just completely false. Like it's neurologically and physiologically impossible to sustain your change efforts when you're doing it alone. And there's the loneliness of making it to the top and not being met in a certain way. So when we're speaking to like putting together peers to actually create the conditions for cultural change, it's because the science says it's needed. And quite frankly, one of the other things that we see as an issue besides them not having peers is that when you don't have peers, you know you're not able to see the things that you can't see. So part of what we're doing and what we're architecting is creating an environment for these people to come together and to mirror their blind spots,
mhm,
to be able to show them what they can't see from a place of having their ideal vision in mind. And so that actually creates the activation. It helps them grow and helps actualize themselves both personally and from a level of impact.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Does your business have, like, a shared vision that anybody that comes in, it's like, "This is what we all are working towards," or do you kind of obviously, if you're a change maker for the culture, we're
Yeah,
moving in a different direction than where we are right now, but I just
totally.
wonder if there's a shared vision that you're hoping everybody has, or
Yeah.
you're kind of using this as a way to just see what organically comes about in the people that gravitate towards you and your work?
Well, yeah, well, it's funny. It's, in the last couple years, as I've been stepping out of a coach and really moving into like a CEO and an architect of a
Mhm,
system, one of the things that I was realizing is that I was needing to create this like collective shared dream that
mhm,
like my clients could buy into so that whatever outcomes that we produced would speak to the dream and not limit ourselves to physical, tangible reality. And so
mhm.
that's what cultural catalyst is. Cultural
Yeah.
catalyst is that identity, it's that dream for each and every one of us. So, and for example, cultural catalyst that we work with, hers is like changing the financial and legal system and also
Mhm,
helping people with financial liberation, right? Like
mhm.
that's her specific version of being a cultural catalyst. Another
Yeah.
person is like, creating a new, I'm so out of politics, but opposite
Mhm.
of Republican or Democrat, like a
Mhm.
new party, basically. That's their
Yeah.
version of being a cultural catalyst. Another version of being a cultural catalyst would be what one of our business partners is doing is like, you know, literally fueling the personal evolution to create cultural evolution through like EFT specifically. And so they're
Mhm.
changing consciousness in a completely different way. And so what that means is like we can all have our individual versions of what being a cultural catalyst means. However, we
Right.
all decide we all are cultural catalysts. And so just me identifying as a cultural catalyst and I meet someone else and I'm like, hi, I'm a cultural catalyst. And they're like, looking at me all confused. And then they light up because they're like, oh my God, I am too. And like no one's given me that title until now. And that's
Yeah.
purposeful. This has been architected to be able to call the right people in and repel the right people out. So
Yes.
that we can really be surrounded by people who want to create a new culture.
So cool. So cool. Well, I think I identify as one of those as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. So, my original question coming back to it, I wanted to know, so when we change leadership at this level and are moving from Eros, we are having community come alongside of us in a shared vision. How does that change the like hierarchical structure? That's a hard word to say.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
that we usually have in business. Like right
Totally.
now, we typically have like CEO at the top and then it kind of trickles down to the grunt people at the bottom.
Totally.
How does that change that dynamic? And have you
Totally.
worked with people that are wanting to make it more of like a horizontal, kind of more community based or circle based way of
Yeah.
doing business?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple different ways that we can answer this question. So there's an aspect of like, you know, part of what brought me to doing this work and even to go apply to grad school to connect
Mhm,
consciousness to systemic change was working with a founder, multi-business founder who when his team was literally walking out on him and I gave an intervention and
mhm,
changed his consciousness. Like I literally like that's what I'm trained in to do. So I changed his consciousness and then his entire system changed. His ability to lead was more effective, his ability
mhm,
to have capacity to hear his people was more expansive, his ability to attract better level and more effective and efficient people increased. He dropped 30 pounds, his businesses went in the green, he attracted the love of his life, right? Like we're not just when you're addressing things at the consciousness level in a founder, you're not just addressing the business. You're addressing the whole entire system. And so that's why it's important
yes,
to work from the top down. It's like we can change everything with
mhm,
just addressing what's called Hawkins calls this their critical systemic points, basically, because they have the greatest amount of leverage within a system.
mhm,
And so and so when we're addressing consciousness as the root, it automatically changes, how that person engages with the rest of their organization, how they engage with their partners, how they engage with their family, right? And when we're operating from a place of power and love and life-givingness and force, it automatically takes the hierarchy out of it. Hierarchy is it's a program, quite frankly, that's been programmed into our genetics for thousands of years.
yeah,
And a lot of us are in the process, and I've been a leader that has been having to address this. And I've dealt with other leaders who, there's domination tactics that are unconscious. And then there's like pushing you out because they're trying to maintain power. And so these things are very real in the reality of working with leaders. And this is why we're actually addressing, the consciousness of the leader to be able to make them come into resonance, them themselves coming into resonance. And when they're in resonance from a place of love, from a place of power, that hierarchy automatically goes away.
yeah. I think we really need that in our world right now.
Mhm.
And I have a hunch that this is gonna be a new wave of business, that we no longer can do business the way that we've been doing it
Mhm,
anymore. I think it's too extracting
mhm.
and, you know, obviously there's a lot of people that are exiting out of the corporate world
Yeah,
because they just can't handle the structure and the culture that has been created through those systems.
yeah,
So we need new systems.
yep, and that starts in the consciousness of the leaders who are creating them.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we actually get to redesign the structures of our culture, right? Even the
Mhm.
way that we are providing service or what we're providing. Like, is there actually a purpose to what we're providing, or is it just money? Is it
Mhm.
about you? Is it
Mhm.
you trying to get some need met, right? Like there was a founder who I briefly got to coach and he was just wanting to take care of everybody on his team, but it was about him, right? It
Yeah.
has to be greater than yourself, otherwise it's not whole serving, and so there's an actual consciousness shift that's needing to be made, and there are leaders who are making it, and even the leaders who are making it are making mistakes. So that's why we're creating an environment for those blind spots to be seen and come into to light and to be addressed and to be able to come into that level of resonance and that resonant leadership, right? That energy, when you look at like the research from Dr. David Hawkins and the difference, we can use Gandhi as an example. How did this guy who literally gave no violence and was just sitting there and meditating, how did he dismantle the entire British Empire, right? Like, that makes no logical sense. But when you actually look at the research behind it, it was because of his attractor field was calibrating of like love. Literally,
Mhm.
that's all he needed to do. And so, our consciousness, our attractor field is the difference between, life giving and whether or not the systems that we're creating are actually creating something that's positive or negative. So it really comes down to the leadership within each and every one of us that we are affecting the attractor field of the entire whole.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you give scientific evidence for that because I do think that a lot of people that may not be in the spiritual realm could hear it and think this is a little woo woo and a little out there. But there is real, actual, tangible evidence for how this works.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love that because I'm in this space. So it's definitely
Yeah.
my jam.
Hmm.
Can you take me a little bit through your process if somebody is like, "Oh, I wanna be part of this program. I wanna have this peer-to-peer space." What
Yeah.
does it actually look like for them to enter into Cultural Catalyst and work with your team or work with, the community that you have?
Yeah, totally. Well, we actually have a weekly masterclass that's specifically for this. So there's a lot of information here. And you're right. We are integrating consciousness with science and science backed
Mm.
consciousness research with scaling research and change research. And so there's a lot going on into what it is that we are creating. And so we've actually created a masterclass that covers these things, in which we actually have people connect to what is their vision 10 to 15 years in the future as a cultural catalyst. Like, what is their legacy? What is their impact? What are their values? Like, what does the rest of their life look like? And we also have them set a moonshot goal that's like greater than themselves, something that creates that positive emotional attractor that can actually sustain those change efforts. And then we actually have them go through a transformational process to not just make it an intellectual or a short term physical experience, but actually creating a positive tipping point through the use of EFT. So for people who are wanting to learn more or experience this or even find out if they're the right fit for this, encourage people to come to our masterclass at culturalcontribution.com. And if you are wanting to proceed forward with us, we have an application that you have the ability to fill out that we get to, see if you're the right fit. And then you get on the phone with my business partner and she'll do some, more alignment questions. And if you're in alignment, that you'll get a chance to talk to me about whether or not you would like to join. So we've got a whole offer for everybody to come in and get to experience it. Because, for some people, they're like, I'm not an 8-figure founder. However, I'm really interested in what you're working on. And so
Mhm.
you're welcome to come to the masterclass and get to learn this stuff and get to experience it. And for the people that are, we've got a whole thing that's really incredible for you to really connect to what it is that's really driving you at a level that will sustain your change efforts.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that question of if you're not, bringing in 6, 7 figures yet and still want to be part of this movement and use this as a way to, like, grow to that place,
Yeah.
is there 1 or 2 things that you would say are your biggest pieces of advice or biggest things
Yeah,
that you want
totally.
people to know?
I love this question because this has been something I've been wrestling with a lot because I'm like, this is needed for everybody, right?
Yes,
And we have a desire to build this out in a way. And you also have to
mm,
understand, like Tesla didn't start with a $30,000 car. Like they started
for
with
sure.
the Roadster, right? And then they built out the lower end model. So that's what we're doing right now. We're starting with the people at the with higher revenue amounts. And
Yeah.
we're going to be using that to fund the stuff for everybody because this is needed. And the science is even showing us that change has to happen at multiple levels of the system.
Mhm.
So that is true. And you're right. And so what does that mean for people in the meantime? Well, what we actually need to do is if you identify as a cultural catalyst, I actually need you to identify as a cultural catalyst if that resonates with you. And I need you to introduce yourself as a cultural catalyst to people. And the reason why is starting to own that identity as a cultural catalyst actually creates the change process. It starts the change process because you're like, you know what? I'm a cultural catalyst. So I'm actually going to go do that thing that I've been saying that I'm not going to do. But because I identify as a cultural catalyst, it's actually going to intrinsically pull me to move in that behavior. So what we're talking about is like a literally identity level transformation. And specific example is like I'm an athlete, for example, and I know other athletes that like I'm an athlete, so I'm going to take actions in a way that are in alignment with me being an athlete. And so for people who are cultural catalysts, I want you to introduce yourself as a cultural catalyst. I want you to tell other people you're a cultural catalyst, and then you might meet other cultural catalysts. And that's the point. We want other cultural catalysts meeting each other so that way we can start having that shared collective vision and start activating each other and providing the fuel for the change process to actually occur.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's kinda, being able to take on that identity for yourself and do that identity shift, and once you kind of are embodying who you want to be, then you're going to be attracting those people into your life as well, and
Mhm,
attracting the things that you need to move into the spaces that you wanna be in or to do the thing that you wanna do.
mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
literally as simple as saying, I'm a cultural catalyst. That's it.
Yeah.
Isn't
I'm
that
a
crazy?
cultural catalyst.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's simple. Very
It's that
cool.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you feel like is your big vision for the future? If you were
Yeah.
able to get all the cultural catalysts in the world to shout from the rooftops that that's who they are, and we're able to bring all these people together and use all of their creative energy to change the world, like
Yeah.
what does that look like in your utopia of what we could create together?
Yeah. Also, it's funny. My partner and I just spent like 6 or so hours in the woods here in Boulder a couple days ago. And she might need to be getting in. And I'm noticing that. Are you needing to get in? You're good. Okay, cool. Um, and I had this realization on the way home and I've connected to this vision. And it's like, okay, so when there is a utopia that's possible to us. And the thing is, it's this most people don't have access to this version of reality of like when people say heaven on earth, right? It's this just like term that people just throw around and you're just like, come
Mhm.
on already. And it's so not grounded in reality at all. However, like we're actually creating the infrastructure to create heaven on earth right now. Like when you think about cultural catalysts and like connect to everyone calling themselves a cultural catalyst and becoming a cultural catalyst because they call themselves a cultural catalyst and connecting with all the other cultural catalysts who call themselves cultural catalysts and then each other fueling each other to be cultural catalysts, we literally create a positive emotional attractor field, okay? Just through consciousness itself in that specific thing. All of this is backed by science. This is the social identity group and the resonance that's needed for fractal
Mhm.
change to occur, okay? So with that higher level field, what it does is it creates a positive tipping point in consciousness itself. It literally can create a positive tipping point in which the consciousness continue to expand, increase. And what I was connecting to the other day was like, we have capacity as humans that is way greater than majority of people are even unlocking within themselves. So can you imagine a reality in which, we are safe to run around, in which we can be ourselves and we can nourish each other and the planet, and we have the capacity to unlock our true potential and in each other, and just like there is so much potential in human beings and in the planet to really unlock our full potential and to be able to actualize ourselves at the greatest level in harmony with nature.
Mm.
And it's a utopia. It's a complete utopia, but you can feel it. It's really positive, right? And the only thing is like that most people don't have access to it. It's just like an intellectual understanding. But like when I'm talking about it, there's an actual positive, like resonant feel that I'm communicating to. And so what we
Mhm.
need to do is become that. We literally need to let go of the negativity that's within our physiology and our nervous system and let go of what we've been as a species to really evolve into what this next iteration is calling for from us, which is quite frankly whether we will be here or not, right? Will we, and even on a individual level, I have a teacher that says like evolve or die right now, basically. And that's,
Mhm.
and the mind and the ego, like it's set up for you not to die. And so that's the level of like, when we're talking about leadership, it starts with self-leadership, because there's a level of self-mastery that's needed to be able to let go of this negativity and to be able to come into this positive state and actually be part of the solution in which we can create that new utopia. It starts within each and every one of us.
I love your energy on this. I feel like you also have a lot of arrows for what you're doing and why you're doing it,
Yeah.
and I'm sure, that's why you're here, and that's why you created all the containers that you have for the people that are really wanting to change the world.
Yeah.
So cool. I I do wanna ask one more question on Eros. So just there's a lot of people that are a little bit squeamish still
Yeah.
around sex in general, and, like, Eros is kind of like
Yeah.
another more
Totally.
spiritual term to use for
Yeah.
kind of sexual energy or catalyst energy in that
Yeah.
way. How do you talk to people in your program around, like, how to activate that and how to work on maybe any preconceived notions or wounds that they might have around that?
Yeah, yeah. So in regards to the Eros part, it's funny, my own personal experience with Eros is like there was a lot of judgment in terms of what it was. Like there was a part of me that
Mm,
was like, it's only sexual energy specifically. And the
mm,
more I've been around Eros and the containers that are telling you to connect to your Eros or your turn on, I'm realizing it's just energy, just like pure
mhm,
vitality, actually. And
mhm.
I have a lot of vitality. And so for your listeners who are judging Eros, like you're actually getting to experience it and just listening to me right now. It's not even sexual energy is one expression of it, but at the same time, it's literally just life force. It's energy, and I got a lot of it. And so for those people who are judging it, it's like, okay, you're welcome to judge it. And like, what is it that you're feeling through me speaking right now? That is Eros.
Yes.
And in regards to like the people that we work with, it's funny, people who identify as cultural catalysts usually already have the arrows going,
Mm,
right? But
mhm,
there's been so much conditioning in terms of right use of power in regards to sexual energy that it is a constant self attunement and self check process to make sure that we are using that energy appropriately and with discernment and from the right place. So in the clients that we work with, a lot of them already are full of life force, right? Like
mhm.
they to have built what they've already built, they've had to let go of that a lot of that negativity already. And so, when it comes into letting go and moving into that next level of pleasure, like quite frankly, that's what my business partners has mastery in. Like she's just like she is just pleasure in being this form. And I'm like, that is your only job, Tracy. All you need to do is just be. And she's like, her whole life, everyone's been trying to tell her who she needs to be and what she needs to do. And reality, all she needs to do is enjoy the experience. And so there's, quite a lot of conditioning and programming against just being ourselves. And so that's what we mean when we being a cultural catalyst is between who we are right now, it's called our real self, and who we want to be, which is a cultural catalyst. That is actually the gap. And it also creates, because it's a pull towards what we want to be, it creates intrinsic motivation to actually be able to address those programs, to be able to let go
Mhm.
of those things. And that's why it's so important being like, yeah, I'm a cultural catalyst. And if I'm going to be a cultural catalyst, I got to let go of all this judgment and preconceived notions about what it is to be a fully alive and turned on human being, because we need you to be able to create a planet that is alive and full of, vitality and, interconnectivity and true prosperity.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I wanna come back to that idea of being versus doing, and
Yeah.
I love that you're just like, the only thing that you need to do is just be. So many of us, one, I think, like, just melt when we hear that because we're just like, "Oh, thank God."
Yeah.
But also, it's hard when you've been in do your whole life
Yeah.
to really be able to, one, let your nervous system, like, regulate just being, because a lot of times we'll be for maybe a second, and then we're like, "Well, but now what? Now I have to do
Yeah.
something."
Totally.
And I think this kinda comes back. I've done some manifestation work, and I always have this question, especially with business, of how much to surrender and how much do
Yes.
you actually have to do? Because like, a
Totally.
business isn't going to go anywhere if you don't actually do something. Like, you do have to do something. but I've definitely been on the other end of doing a lot all the time,
Totally.
spinning my wheels all the time, feeling like I'm kinda chasing my business,
Yeah.
and I've been really, really working on how do
Yes.
I lean back? How do I be? How do I just kind of set what I want to happen up and then not be so attached to the outcome?
Totally.
Um, so can you talk a bit about that, of
Yeah.
kind of the difference between doing and being, especially in business?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, let's just take a step back here and like one of the things that, Dr. David Hawkins left to humanity was something
Mm,
called the scale of consciousness. And the scale of consciousness was a logarithmic scale that goes from 0 to 1,000, 0 being death, basically, 1,000 being enlightenment, 200 basically being willingness. Okay. And so what does that mean in regards to this like push or, do I let go or do I intend, right? Well,
mm,
when we actually look at, what's under 200 on the scale out of 1,000, everything that's under 200 is associated with fear. It's life-taking, it's depleting. And when you actually look at how that affects productivity, it's two different ways. One is inertia, which I know my partner had problem with that. It's just like not getting started at all. And then the other side of it is hyperactivity, which is associated with anger and desire. And when I'm referring to desire in this case, I'm referring to cravingness, wantingness,
mm,
and not the Eros of life force that's pulling you forward towards something. Those are two different things. And so when we actually are wanting to, when we're actually addressing shifting from out of inertia or, letting go of inertia or letting go of hyperactivity, well, that means we actually need to change our consciousness. Like when we adjust consciousness, it's actually a tractor field that is affecting our beingness levels, that is affecting what we do and what we have. This is the difference between Newtonian physics, which is based off of causality, and the nonlinear metaphysics, which is based off of essence creates things that are outside of context that the mind can't perceive, basically. And so when we want to change the way we work, we actually need to change who we are, which is our programs, our belief systems. And one of the things that I think gets really misconstrued in the personal development world is there's just like change your mindset. The only
mhm,
thing is to actually change your mindset is that there's actually an attractor field that is actually causing you to have specific belief systems that are affecting your perception of reality and the actions that you're taking and the overall momentum that you have. And so what we actually need to do is go a step further and deeper and being like, okay, what is it the belief systems that I'm actually experiencing that are causing me to be inactive and inert or to be, you know, angrily or desirably moving things forward and pushing things forward, which we got to see with Hermosi last week. He was creating from a place of anger, right? And we actually have to let go of those programs. And so what does that mean, right? Like for many, many years, I had been told to let go and I had no idea what that meant. And it
yeah,
wasn't until working with a high performance coach that he was like, you are controlling everything. And my response was, of course, my mother is like extremely controlling. And I bless my mother. She's worked on it. She's gotten a lot better. And, I was heavily conditioned to control everything. And so that
yes,
ended up me actually studying Dr. David Hawkins' work, Surrender the Mechanism of Letting Go. So it's an actual mechanism to be able to let go. And what does that mean? Is like, there's actually a tool we can get for the mind to let go of the belief systems that are stemming from specific attractor levels, whether it be shame or guilt or pride or desire or fear or, everything in between that's associated with fear. We can actually let go of those emotions that are also attractor. It's literally levels of consciousness. It's our awareness of that specific level that's causing those belief systems. We can actually let those go through the mechanism of surrender. And it's really simple. It comes down to three things: allowing a feeling to run out completely, not judging something. And it's not just good or bad. That's like duality in its most basic. Duality is not seeing the wholeness of reality. And because the mind's limitations of seeing things as causality, right? And then the third thing is accepting things as they are without needing to fix or change them. And I personally find that for people who've already been successful, they already are feeling their feelings. So what is it that's preventing them from actually letting go of these like, work behaviors that aren't really serving who they are? Often it's because they're trying to fix or change something. And sometimes we actually need to give ourselves permission to not fix things or not fix things ever, right? And what happens is the mind can literally let go and actually have access to the emotion that the mind is blocking. And that's actually where the belief systems are held, is in the emotions itself. So that's why when people are like, the mind is the biggest barrier to enlightenment, that's true, is the mind is literally in the way of you feeling the programs that are causing you to behave and work in the way that you're feeling.
Hmm. Wow. I, I think so many people, not even just in business, but so many people could benefit from being able to access that system and uncouple ourselves from that system of control. And interesting that you say that you had a mom that was very controlling. I'm part of a mom's group, and we all collectively have moms that were very controlling and are
Totally.
all like working on that for ourselves too. I think so many women have had to really feel like I need to control in order to feel safe. I really feel like it is a trauma response to living in a
Totally.
patriarchal society.
Hmm.
And I think as the generations move on, we're really starting to look at this is not actually helpful or healthy for anyone anymore. And we have to learn how to turn that off.
Hmm.
And so I love that there's actually like a roadmap for that because it can feel very nebulous of like,
Hmm.
how do I even do that? And so thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to share before we close out for today?
I think the only thing that I want to share, and I want to bring this back to leadership, right? We know that
Yes. Yeah.
resonant leadership within a social identity group, such as cultural catalyst, is literally what creates the emotional contagion. So, what that means is like the energy that moves throughout the system, which the feminine knows that we can feel the emotional contagion. We see the change happening through our relationships, right? So, what does that mean on a personal level? Well, that's what I mean by like owning our own leadership. And what I mean by owning our own leadership and our ability to create resonance so that we can actually be the cultural catalyst, that starts with being the captain of our consciousness.
Mhm.
And when I mean being the captain of our consciousness, I mean that is being able to let go of your mind, to be able to let go of the party that's trying to fix or change you, to be able to let go of your ability to see duality, to be able to come into the wholeness of all that is, and to be able to feel whatever it is that life gives you, and to find a big enough reason to be able to do it. Because that's the biggest challenge with change is there's not something that's pulling us to be able to create that change process. And that's why it's so important to be like, I am a cultural catalyst and I am going to do that work because I want to be a cultural catalyst, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to have something that's greater than us to pull us forward because the ego and the mind is inherently kept there to do that, right? And
Mhm.
so when it comes to, how challenging it is to actually do this work and to stick with it long enough to be able to address these patterns, because for some people, it's like it's not enough of a reason to change.
Mhm.
Even though we don't like it or we do want it to change, but we don't know how to change, right? Like we have to have a vision that's greater than ourselves to be able to change because the mind is inherently and quite frankly, that's relates us back to like even like AA, right? Let's go back to
Mm.
AA. Why is it that in the 12-step program, you have to devote your life something to greater than yourself? Why? Well, because you literally have become powerless to the addiction. And
Mhm.
that is how intense the mind is. Like to be able to actualize ourselves as a cultural catalyst, to be able to own our own leadership and to be the resonance that we need to create the cultural change that we want to see, it all starts with being able to be the consciousness, to be able to captain of our consciousness.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just leadership in general, again, bringing it back to women in our role that we've played in society, a lot of times leadership is either something we're afraid of or something we think we have to do in the way that we've been taught by patriarchy to be a leader.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, you're saying like there's a different way to be a leader, but we
Yeah.
all have to like take that initiation step into being our own leader. And that
Yep.
means being, the leader of our own consciousness and really
Yep.
taking ownership of that.
Yeah. And setting a goal that makes us want to change, makes something
Mhm.
that lights us up, right? That's the point of the moonshot process that we
Mhm.
do in our on our master classes, like connecting to a vision of ourself that is like literally just like seems impossible, completely
Mhm.
impossible, but it also lights us up at the same time. Having something greater than ourselves. That's what I mean why the AA, you have to surrender your will over to God. You have to surrender to something greater than yourself. And so when it
Mhm.
comes to becoming the captain of our consciousness, we have to connect to something greater than ourselves so that we continue in our change process.
Yeah. So good. So good. Well, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everyone where they can find you? I will link all the links in the show notes,
Yeah,
of course, but give your spiel on where they can find you and how to
yeah,
get in contact with you.
yeah. Well, if you're a cultural catalyst and you want to learn the science behind it, you want to connect to yourself 10 to 15 years as a cultural catalyst in the future. And you also want to set a moonshot goal that seems completely impossible but lights you up. And We'd absolutely love to have you in our weekly masterclass on Saturdays at culturalcontribution.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Jaclyn. This has been such a great conversation. I hope everyone got a lot out of all the insights that you brought. And for everyone listening, I will talk to you in my next episode.